Today's story, the Halloween of 2007. For the best experience, we recommend dimming your room lights.
I was 15 years old when this happened, but I have still not been able to get it out of my head. And I don't think I ever will. Although I was too old to go trick-or-treating, I loved to watch my mom prepare her special homemade cookies for the kids in the neighborhood and place them in goodie bags. But that year, things were meant to be different. My mother had to leave with my dad for his business trip with no definite date of return. It could be a couple of days or a few weeks. Her sister, my aunt, called up to invite me over to stay with my cousin, Jake, who was a freshman and lived with his friends in a rented apartment in the city. His roommates would be going home for the Halloween break, and so I could spend the time with him. I was not thrilled with the idea because I never really liked Jake. He was a bully even as a child. When we were children, we spent our summer holidays together along with my other cousins. I remember how he had once kicked a dog in the park and threatened us to keep quiet afterwards. Anyhow, things may have changed as he has grown up. Moreover, in a couple of years, I will probably be joining the same university, so it could be a good opportunity for me to look around and to get to know the place. I used to be a nerdy geek back in those days, so my parents weren't apprehensive about me. On Wednesday morning, my parents drove me to his place on their way to the airport. Jake was standing at his door with his big, flashy smile. No crazy stunts. "We don't want any calls from the ER or the police, got it?" they said before driving away. Jake helped me inside. It was a regular city apartment, and Jake and his roommates lived on the ground floor. Jake pointed to the kitchen and said,
"Help yourself with something. Dan and Ed are leaving tonight, so it will pretty much be just us."
His roommates were already in the uni, and Jake appeared to be in a hurry. He picked up his backpack, and before leaving, he threw the apartment keys to me.
"I am late for class, don't burn the place down. And keep that window closed."
He pointed towards a window facing the street. As I walked over to the window, I saw an old man standing a couple of feet away. He smiled at me. It seemed odd to me to smile back at strangers looking into the house. I walked away from the window and sat on the couch with my laptop. In the evening, I decided to take a walk around the street, and I saw the old man again. He lived next door and was doing something in his front yard. When he saw me, he said,
"So you are the new roommate?"
I found it difficult to ignore the man. He probably knew Jake and his friends. Or maybe he works at the university.
"No, just staying over for a few days."
"You are never too old for candies, and I will keep some on my porch tomorrow if you come trick-or-treating."
"No. I don't do that."
Although he said this in a friendly way, something about him put me off. I walked away. Jake's roommates left around 7 p.m. Jake and I ordered pizza. When the delivery guy rang the bell, I went to get the door. I looked up and saw that the old man started walking towards me. He was looking at me with the same smile that I had seen earlier. It was unnerving. I closed the door. I told Jake about the old man.
"What is the deal with him?"
Jake's face changed somewhat, and he asked me to ignore him. I found it a bit strange, but didn't want to probe further. We ate pizza, talked about our lives, watched a game on TV, and went to sleep. At night, I woke up to a slight sound at the window. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the sound was consistent, almost like a knock. When it didn't go away, I turned and saw a figure standing outside. It was dark and raining outside. In that faint streetlight, I could tell it was the old man. By this time, I was completely rattled. I wanted to wake Jake up, who was lying on the bed at the other side of the room, but I didn't want to move or give the impression that we had heard him. I held my breath. I had kept my phone on charge at the desk, so there was no way I could reach my phone without alerting the man. In what seemed like an eternity, the man outside moved away. I could tell from the retreating footsteps. I knew that Jake was awake and had heard the sound.
Go back to sleep, Em.
Jake said softly. The next morning, I told Jake.
I am pretty sure it was the old man next door.
He is just some senile old dude. He stares at everyone. Nothing to be worried about.
Should we not go to the police or something?
And say what? He is pretty much harmless.
But peeping through the window? That's stalking, right?
My friend Mark is having a Halloween evening. Wanna join me?
By then it was quite clear that Jake wanted to avoid answering my question for some reason. I would have loved to stay by myself instead of joining Jake and his friends, but the idea of having to stay by myself with a crazy neighbor was not ideal. So I agreed to join him. Jake's apartment felt smaller at night. The streetlight outside the front window pulsed through the blinds, cutting the room into stripes of orange and black. Even with the blinds drawn, I swore I saw movement outside, a silhouette, a reflection, something. The neighborhood was quieter than usual because most of the residents are students at the university and they had gone home. Jake's friend lived a couple of blocks away. By 8 p.m., Jake and I started. On the way, I saw a couple of costumed figures walking down the street. The old man was on his porch with a clown mask on. I avoided looking at him but could feel that he followed us with his eyes. At the party, there was loud music, strobe lights, fake fog, and people in masks. I didn't know anybody and felt awkward sitting by myself in the corner. I kept glancing at my watch, waiting for an excuse to leave. But I didn't have the heart to walk back to the apartment by myself. Around midnight, an older guy came up to me. It was Mark. He handed me a handwritten note and told me that Jake left it for me when I had dozed off. I was embarrassed and tried to read the note. It was written, "Heading back to the apartment, walk back when you can." That was strange. Why did Jake leave without me? He could have woken me up himself. Clearly, the party was still not over. So I began to wonder what the hurry was. Did someone call him? Does it have anything to do with the old man? I didn't wait. I left Mark's place and practically ran the 2 blocks. My heart was pounding. The road was almost deserted. Every costume and mask I crossed on the street looked like a threat. When I reached the apartment, the door was ajar. I called for Jake. No answer. Inside, one of the lamps had fallen, light flickering across the living room. The street-side window was open. There was no sign of Jake. I knew something was wrong. But I debated, should I leave or look for Jake? I tried calling Jake, but the phone kept ringing from further inside the apartment. I backed away, toward the front door, and heard something, slow breathing, coming from the dark kitchen. I called out for Jake again. The breathing stopped. I dialed 911 and bolted towards the front door. As I reached for the door, someone's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. The phone fell from my hand. I must have screamed and kicked, stumbling backward. The door swung wide, and the light from the street lamp revealed the old man's face. His eyes were hollow, skin gray in the light. The clown mask was hanging from his neck like a necklace. His grip was far too strong for his age. I gasped.
Where's Jake?
The old man's mouth trembled as if trying to form words, but nothing came.
I warned him, I told him not to.
The old man rasped. A sound cut him off, a groan from behind. Jake crawled out from the back of the apartment, blood trickling from a cut on his head. My heart was pounding.
He broke in.
You took my pills, you sold them to your friends.
Jake stammered. The old man's voice turned sharp. He said Jake took his pills and sold them to his friends. Jake lunged forward, and the old man raised his arm with what looked like a gun. I stopped breathing for a moment and ran out the front door, into the cold street. Behind me, a glass shattered. A yell, thud. I didn't stop that. I ran till Mark's place and called up the police. By the time the police arrived, the apartment was silent again. The old man gone, they found Jake unconscious on the floor. I'd called up my parents from Mark's place and they took the next flight back home and were there to pick me up in the morning. The police questioned me until sunrise. Jake was taken to the hospital later that night. Concussion, minor injuries, shaken but alive. The old man wasn't so lucky. They pulled him from a construction pit 2 streets away, where he'd stumbled and fallen trying to escape. Jake admitted to stealing the man's prescription painkillers weeks earlier and selling them to friends for extra cash. He said he hadn't thought the old man would notice. I went home the next day, silent during the drive and for several days thereafter. But since then, every following Halloween, I couldn't bring myself to answer the door. Every knock sounded like a hand tapping on glass. It took me a long time to put the nightmare behind me. During some dark moments, when I look out the window, my mind plays tricks, and I see the face of an old man looking in.
If you like this story, please do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more.